My association with Citroen has been when I'm following WRC or playing WRC on my PlayStation, or the few occasions when I've gone to Europe and taken a self-drive car. Citroen as a car brand has existed for well over a century, but it is only now that people like me, you, here in India can experience their flagship product, that is the C5 Aircross SUV. Yes, the French car maker is all set for a big bang in the Indian car market. What does this premium SUV have that makes it premium? And will it create its own identity and also help the French car maker lay a foundation for all subsequent products? Much more about this SUV, so stay tuned. This is HD Auto. The media car we've been given to drive around is white in color, and it's not the top end. So we're standing next to this stationary grey colored Aircross to really bring about the visual highlights on the top end. Some of these features are of course available in the lower variants as well. Starting off with how the nose of the car looks. So you have a chrome line here all the way from the DRLs moving into the twin swivel which makes up the Citroen design and flowing into the other DRL. The DRLs sit on top of the projector LED headlights, and there are fog light units on either side as well. Very unique to the profile of the car are these air dams here, really large air dams, and the butterfly wing effect on the bonnet of this vehicle. Now the emphasis clearly is on giving this a sporty appeal, a muscular appeal, and yet not being extremely aggressive. From the side is where the profile really becomes even more sporty than from the front. So the Aircross has an overall length that's actually shorter than its direct rival. So I'm talking about Hyundai Tucson, the Honda CR-V and the Tiguan All-Space. But the wheelbase is actually among the largest. But I would like to highlight here the wheels, the 18-inch alloy wheels sit really well on the C5 Aircross's side profile. The wheel arches though are not very pronounced, they're not the largest, and well, that's fine because this car is not 4x4. What is particularly impressive is attention to detail. So you have these two speed lines right here which sort of is for aesthetic appeal. You also have this geometric pattern over this large black cladding which I think will keep most of the dust, the mud away from the cabin on the inside. You also have these large windows which are highlighted by this chrome plate all around, and especially gets pronounced over the C-pillar, actually forming an inverted C or a C from the other side if you look at it. Now hands-free boot opening is something that many manufacturers are now offering in their cars. So it's a simple swipe and the boot opens up. But what the Aircross also offers is closing the boot similarly. So again, just a swipe and it shuts down on its own. The profile of the car from the rear is one that's very clean, very well done, very sophisticated. So even if you cover this symbol logo here and you cover the Citroen badge, you cover the C5 Aircross, this car is actually quite unique to look at, very catchy. Thankfully, the lettering of the Citroen here, C5 Aircross, is just the right font so as to give it a very clean profile. What's really eye-catching also is this 3D LED rear light unit, which gives it a nice clean profile. What I'm not a big fan of is the size of this rear quarter glass. I feel it could have been slightly bigger because when you're looking at the car from the outside, it's still fine. But when you see into the rear view mirror from the inside, the space that you get is not all that much. But overall, it's a very clean profile, and the C5 Aircross will surely turn heads on the roads. Now to get things started, we are starting from within this car because there is much to like here within the cabin of the Aircross. I'll try to keep it short, crisp and simple, or as much as I can. The great thing, the door shuts with a reassuring thud. There is really good amount of cushioning on these seats, in fact all the seats inside, so long journeys wouldn't be a problem. There is generous amount of knee room. Leg space is quite adequate. In fact, this seat is pulled a lot behind and still I have quite a lot of space. The headroom is also adequate for the average Indian height. And the seats, I mentioned they're nicely cushioned, but that's not just it. The seats can be adjusted for recline as well as can be slided forward and backward. And yes, I'm talking about all 3 seats here. So for example, you want to push this forward or back, and it's possible. The fact that there is no hump here means that the passenger in the middle seat won't really have all that much of a problem, although the central armrest does creep in quite a bit. On the flip side though, this particular car does not have a sunroof. There is only one USB charging point, so there is no 12-volt socket here. The windows are, well, adequate, but for someone like me who wants to keep his hand on the window line, well, it's a little uncomfortable to do that because this doesn't go down completely. That said, the car has a nice feel around it. The cabin space is good. There is a lot of element that plays in. So there are those little elements here and there as well, like this piano black finish. The storage space is adequate. On most parts, passengers on the rear seat would be quite happy even on long journeys inside the Aircross. But what does the front seat have? Let's find out. So the front seats, well, first thing you notice when you step in is the 8-inch touchscreen in the central console. There is also a really nice 12.3-inch TFT screen for the driver as well. This particular one can be customized to your visual liking, and there is good quality material all around, at least in the front section. Now, there is a bit of hard plastic used inside the doors of the rear section of this car, but no such thing here. The quality is pretty good, soft touch leather everywhere, and the car looks as premium as it claims to be. The driver seat can be adjusted for height. It's all electronic. It can be positioned as and how you would like it, so that's also great. Specifically talking about the center console, you just can't miss this really nice looking, futuristic perhaps, gear lever right here. On its side are the drive modes, so you can get to choose between normal, snow, dust, mud, and you can even switch off traction. Additionally, you can switch to the eco mode, or if you want a little more punch from the engine, well, there is a sports mode here as well. There is hill assist control and of course the electronic parking brake right here. Now, special addition seems to have been given to storage spaces, at least here in the front passenger seats. Now, there are 2 cup holders. They vary in size. There is one small section where you can plonk your keys. There is a really large area where you can put your phone for charging, and there is a USB point here and a 12-volt socket, thankfully, given here. On the side, there is a really large section for bottles. In fact, this looks good enough for a 1.5 liter size bottles as well. The steering, well, can be adjusted for reach and rake. And overall, there is a nice sense of a commanding view of the road ahead and on the side as well. I also particularly like how the air vents have been designed. There is the twin square shape design on all of the 4 AC vents up at front, which is really new, really unique. What I'm not a big fan of is that the central screen, the touch, it's not the most responsive, so it just takes a bit of time to respond, especially when you're navigating on the navigation system, on the map system. You also have to select every mode before it can be reflected here. So for example, music needs to be selected from here rather than something on the screen itself. AC controls, well, again, the button here. Navigation, the button here. And of course, this car comes with a lot of parking assist, so we'll get to that in just a bit. Phone function. All of these things can be accessed through these physical buttons, and then you touch the screen to handle it. I'm also not very sure what's happening in the glove compartment because there is this large hump that eats into the space, and we've not really figured what this is. But if this thing is as is, then there is limited space inside the glove box. Cabin space, features, tech, and how the car looks. We've spoken about everything, but now we are going to experience how the car drives. So we're going to swap this grey colored Aircross for the white one to really experience that magic carpet ride effect that Citroen has been talking about. So we're all set. Time to really get this car on the move. So right up front, let me tell you that this car here will only come with a diesel engine option. There is a petrol available in international markets, but for someone who's in the Indian market for a petrol SUV, well, Citroen doesn't really have anything yet, and not anything for now. That aside, the diesel engine here is a 2-liter box and produces about 173 bhp of power. More notably, there is 400 Newton meters of torque. And yes, it is a very punchy engine, which is good fun to drive. You want even more fun, and if you are a diesel enthusiast, then there is that sport button. Just a click, and I spoke about it a little while back. It does give you a little extra punch when you want it. The gearbox obviously deserves a special mention because it's an 8-speed gearbox, and as per the claims of Citroen, it is quite buttery smooth. It doesn't have a lot of rubber band effect. It's not absolutely absent, the rubber band effect, but it is quite tame for most parts. And that real question of whether we feel like Aladdin and if this is indeed a magic carpet ride. Well, now we are in a bumpy stretch of road, and we've been doing this for quite some time. And let me tell you, Citroen was bragging, but they have a lot of weight to that brag, because this car suspension is just really, really good at absorbing anything and everything that you throw at it. In fact, I'll stick my neck out and say that the suspension is as good, if not better, than inside some of the luxury cars that we've driven. Now, mechanically, in terms of engineering, why that is happening, how that is happening, is because there is a hydraulic stop system on the suspensions. For the layman, it's like a cushion in the suspension system that does a much better job of absorbing the road bumps and noises. This is really a great feature to have on Indian roads, and it really makes sense for Citroen to be really pushing that before saying anything else about this vehicle. Now, as far as the steering is concerned, it's, well, very, very, very light. In fact, it's almost as light as what you would find in the Tucson, if not lighter. That is good news if most of your driving will be in city conditions with traffic, but not so good news if you are going to be out on open roads, because, well, there is hardly any feedback that would excite me, especially when reaching triple-digit speeds. And since this diesel engine is capable of hitting triple-digit speeds effortlessly, the steering could have perhaps complemented it better. There is considerable amount of engine noise from the diesel unit under the hood, but that's only when the car is on and you're listening to it from the outside, or you have the windows down and you're pushing the car. But even when you're pushing the car and all the windows are rolled up, there is nothing much that's seeping into the cabin. No road noise, no ambient noise. The engine noise is also really, really low. The Aircross SUV grips the road really well, but when you're taking those sharp turns at relatively high speeds, there is noticeable body roll, which can be a little unnerving, especially in this car, because it's otherwise just so refined, just so comfortable to sit in. Another thing to note is that the brake, well, it lacks a sort of a grip. A stronger braking system would have been better, because I have to press the brake pedal a little harder than I would like to get the desired stopping effect. Tight parking spots, well, that's also not an issue, because this car features park assist and park sensor. On a side note, the alarm systems on this car are, well, really loud. Check this. Now that is really loud. Anyway, that's just on a lighter note, something that I thought needs a mention. So in a nutshell, the C5 Aircross SUV plays to its strengths really well. Its biggest promise is comfort, and well done Citroen on that count. It also looks pretty sporty, it's not overly aggressive, drives, has a punchy feel to it, although we would have also liked the petrol version because there are a lot of people in the Indian market who would want a petrol. There is body roll and the steering is very light, but apart from that, there is not much to fault the C5 Aircross SUV for. What do you make of this flagship product from a company that's making its debut? Do let us know. And for now, thank you so much for watching. Stay safe, drive safe.